can draw our attention, we're going to call this meeting of the November 13th Costa Mesa Sanitary District Citizens Advisory Committee meeting to order at 6:04. We will begin with roll call. Who's doing that for me?
I'll be
Okay, all
Roll
right.
call. So Chair Mike Carey,
Present?
Vice Chair Albert Graham Jr., present. Andrew Nielsen,
Present.
Elodie Katz, here. Judith Elo,
Present.
Judith Takaya,
Here.
Mike McElroy, Monty Fields, Bill Marsh,
Here.
Stephen Takahashi, and Sue Lester. Here. Thank you.
All right, next up on our agenda is the approval of our minutes of the September 18th meeting. For those of you that were here, have you had an opportunity to look those over?
I'll move that we approve.
Okay,
I'll second that.
move in second. All those opposed? Or in favor, opposed?
Aye.
Approve without objection, approve without objection?
I wasn't here, so I'll just
Abstain? All
abstain.
right,
I've read them, but
all right, motion carried. Let's see, approved Board of Directors regular meeting minutes of September 19th. Hopefully you guys have looked at those. Those are received and filed. I'd like to encourage members of our committee to attend the board meetings.
I attended, but my name's not on there for
Oh.
having attended.
You attended our meeting or the Board of Directors?
The one in the morning?
Oh, okay,
that's the.
that would have been the study session, right?
The boys were all sitting in the morning.
Pardon me?
The present.
Yeah, I mean, the board meetings are on Thursdays at 5:30.
We have the study session on the second Tuesday of the month at 9:30 in the morning, and then the regular board meeting fourth Thursday at 5:30. Now that's going to be changed in January. It's going to be the fourth Monday at 4:30. No, yeah, it's 4:30. 4:30. So at the beginning of the year that changes.
It's gonna change, it's gonna be, every meeting will be on
Yeah, in
Monday.
January it's going to be the fourth Monday of the month at
Okay.
4:30.
So the one that you attended would have been the study session in the morning. But these are the Board of Directors meetings, so again, I would like to encourage members of our committee to attend the board meetings and see what our board is up to, rather than just reading about it in the minutes. So those were received and filed. Next up is the draft Board of Directors regular meeting minutes. Draft board for October 29th. This is still draft.
And Mr. Mack, I make some comments on it. I know Ken wanted me to make some comments on significant conversations or actions that the boards took. I have to do that.
Okay, yes, please do, Scott.
So on October 29th, a few things to note at that meeting for the board of directors. One was the multifamily proposal. Staff was floating the idea of spending about $40,000 on the study to try to address the multifamily issues and concerns, especially concerns that the city had brought up, such as costs and financial benefits, number of trucks needed for multifamily collections. But in the end, the board decided not to appropriate the money or do a study. We felt that no matter what kind of study we do, it's not going to change their mind. So instead, the board requested this item be discussed at the solid waste ad hoc committee, which is having their first meeting on December 11th at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then the board approved appropriating nearly $22,000 for repairing this room's audio video system. And Gina's currently drafting a contract with the vendor. We anticipate that work be done in the year beginning of 2020. The board received a report from District Engineer Rob Amers about the structural analysis of the existing drywall for the President Pump Station reconstruction project. And later this evening, you're going to hear more about that tonight. Also, the board accepted the improvements for the Indus sewer main relocation project that was successfully placed a new sewer line in service because the existing line on Indus was being crushed from a building that was constructed on top of it. And fortunately, we completed this project before the sewer line was completely crushed. And I do want to thank District Engineer Rob Havers for all his efforts in the planning, designing, overseeing the construction of this project. It was very successful. Thank you, Rob, for doing an excellent job on that project. And then finally, the board adopted a resolution modifying the wastewater discharge permit, conditional waiver permit for the Denny's restaurant on Harbor Boulevard. The resolution stipulated that Denny's must clean their sewer ladle by hydrojetting it once a month. And if another SSO occurs, the board reserves the right to order a termination of the conditional variance to require them to install a grease interceptor. And that's all I have to comment on board meeting.
Great, thank you, very relevant. Thank you, and thank you, Rob.
Can I just
Yes,
make a comment really quick? Is, under, from the board meeting, under general manager reports, in the minutes, it says that there was only one CAC member absent at the September 18th meeting, but our meeting minutes said there were 4 people absent.
I'll look at that.
What are we doing for $22,000 in this room?
It's basically redoing the whole thing. The audio system that was approved for this project really didn't meet the requirements for the room this size. Gina contacted 4 different vendors, and all 4 vendors said the same thing. The audio visual equipment we have installed here does not meet for this room, and all proposals were pretty close to the same.
All right.
So, because we have 4 vendors saying the same thing, we.
Yeah.
we
No, agree.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of dough for
Yeah.
a nice looking room.
I know, we weren't pleased with the outcome of the audio visual equipment.
Scott, you said at a previous meeting that you guys, I think you make this available for certain nonprofits and community organizations, but you also make it available to rent, and have you ever been able to rent it?
Yes, we do make it available to rent, and we have not rented. I think we rented to one person, but it's been limited, just not yet.
Okay, any other comments on the draft board meeting from October 29th? Hearing none, we'll move to the next item on our agenda, which is review of the citizen survey, the results of that. Interested to
Yeah,
hear
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you might recall, Larry, I think it was at your last meeting,
Yeah.
Adam Lusky was here telling about the survey that we were going to conduct and the purpose of that survey, and we're requiring questions from this CAC, or what kind of questions you want on that survey. The survey, it was done from October 19th through October 27th, where 500 residents or voters were surveyed, and tonight are the results. And I'm going to ask for Adam Poleski to share you the results, and then have any questions from the CAC. So,
Thank you very much. Is there a clicker I can steal from someone?
just we sent out a PDF file, so just tell us where you want to go.
Oh, boy.
It's like-
Can I ask you a quick question before you start?
Please.
In your breakdowns of all the stuff that you found out, it's all based on percentages, like age groups, ethnicity, and all that.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you had it in numbers, because I know that it was 500 people, and based on race, it could have been like 2 people,
Sure.
where it's 80% and 20%, or
Yes,
50-50,
so this document is 100 and, this presentation is 144 slides. The report on results, which includes everything, all the research, is, I guess we didn't, that's for the focus group. So the report on results for all the research is, give me a second here to get to the bottom, 1,116 pages.
It would be on there somewhere?
So all that data is in there, everything cross-tabulated, so you can spend a week and a half looking through all the minor numbers of the 2 people who live in Newport Beach who answered this way.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
curious, I
So,
apologize.
absolutely. So our goal here tonight is just to give you kind of that high-level view and give you a sense of how to look at the data, and then absolutely you can kind of pour through all the other things that staff has. I'm a little concerned that I'm going to be giving a lot of instructions on how to move along, but I apologize in advance.
It's okay.
All right, so we'll go to the next slide and just give a sense of the survey methodology of how we went about doing this. So as we kind of indicated early on, our methodology is to do multi-mode, essentially meet residents where they're at and where they're comfortable responding. So we had 166 respondents on the telephone and 334 online. And most of the people on the telephone were mobile phone respondents. There's some people still respond on landlines, but most of the people, majority, chose are pretty much mobile phone only, which matches America. Majority of America is mobile phone only, and there's another 10% or so that are mobile phone mostly, like my household. And then we offered it in Spanish and Vietnamese as well as English. 5% of respondents chose to respond in Spanish, and 2% chose to respond in Vietnamese. And you'll see there's some split sample questions in there. And we chose, as we have in years past, to talk to voters, which largely align with residents. And there is, some crossover scenario where some people might not be included in that. The trade-off is we have great demographic data that we have, age and gender, where people are born, things that could really be useful in analyzing the data and doing outreach. And that's the reason we chose that. The fact that this is a political subdivision, and it's quite useful to have that kind of data. So if we go to the first slide, the next slide, we'll have, we ask an open-ended question, and that question is, what's the most important issue facing your community today? Not necessarily something we're going to see, sewers as high on the list, and as you can see, it really isn't. But we get a sense of what people are thinking about, and if there is a major issue that relates to the agency, we will find it. So here you see the things that you probably already knew, homelessness and housing costs and things like that. Nothing that necessarily relates back to the district, but as an agency, you can see very low on the list, water and drought that could be relevant. All right, we'll keep going. And I'm going to...
Environmental being the third definitely has overlay with the districts.
Yeah, for sure. And this is, for, and it's a great point. We are a coastal community, and I think one of the biggest things that is important to look at on this list is there is nothing in the 40, 50, 60% range, nothing that is, OMG, we've got a problem, although homelessness is clearly getting up there. So the next slides, I'm going to go really quickly through because I think they're kind of nitty gritty, but we'll go to slide number 5. And here is essentially where people get their news and information. And we asked them we basically condense it down to one slide with whatever they mention. It turns out that most people are getting their news online these days, followed by local television, followed by social media, some people in radio. We can go to the next one, and I'll just kind of give you an example of you're probably page down, right? Or page down? Here's an example of what newspaper people are looking at. It turns out it's pretty relatively close between the two newspapers. And then other people say other news outlets, but LA Times and Register are kind of high on the list. I don't feel the need necessarily to go through each of the different kinds of news outlets. You could read through them yourself, but just give you a sense, what is this relevant? Well, if staff puts a notice in the newspaper, you can get a sense of where it's going to be read and how many people are going to see it. Or if there's a news article that says, yay, Costa Mesa Sanitary District did something great, you'll know the relative impact of that. But I'm going to go to slide number 11, because I think that we're in 2019 and a lot of people have social media on their mind, and I want to give you a sense of, if the district is expending resources online and social media, and you're spending all your time on Twitter, it's probably not the most effective place to spend your time. It's no secret that Facebook is the platform for the widest used platform today. That could change over time, but today that's the widest used platform, and others significantly less so. And then I'm going to go to slide number 14, and we asked them to name who picks up, what's the organization that, or service provider that picks up your trash. And, this is kind of a little bit of a trick question, I mean, to some degree, right? Everybody knows that CR&R largely is picking up trash, but also the fact that we have Costa Mesa Sanitary District as the agency. The truth is, the knowledge isn't quite entirely there. They don't specifically name the trash company. They don't specifically name the agency in large part. They think there are some others in the mix, and so I think that's quite frankly okay. It's just the reality of where we're at today.
I guess the
Yeah.
20% uninsured, is that concerned?
What's-
40% uninsured, is that concerned?
No, I don't think so at all. I think it's just the reality. We're sitting here, right? You are board members of a citizens committee that is engaged in this subject matter. None of them are thinking about this. They put their trash out, and we're lucky that they see CR&R on their trash bin and remember that. It's not top of mind. It's not even a part of their thought process. They pay their bill. Most people probably pay their bill online. It's automatic. It's just not a part of their conversation at all. I wouldn't.
Oh, sorry,
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, Waste Management, Rainbow, or where, are those providers that picked up some of the dumpsters for the services? So in a sense, those could be correct answers, because they're not
Yeah.
necessarily single-family resident homeowner.
Yes.
Sure. And also, we could be talking to business owners who live in the community who also have them as a provider. So it's totally logical.
Well, tying into what he said, do you know how many of the people you surveyed are actually single family that would have waste
Versus
pickup?
renters.
Correct.
Yeah.
versus renters.
It's on the last slide, it shows that.
Yeah, we've got it. We've got
Sorry,
it
to
there.
jump ahead.
No, please. Slide number 15, we tell them you live within the Costa Mesa Sanitary District. Do you know what services Costa Mesa Sanitary District provides? And it was an open-ended question, and they were able to kind of tell us what they think. Curbside collection and compost and things like that. 3% say sewage. 0.4% say street cleaning. Some people, another one person or so, think that you don't provide service to them. Not a lot of information, and the biggest answer is no, I don't know what they do. And again, I think there's a big competition for marketing dollars and outreach, and I think it's okay that the agency isn't top of mind and everybody knowing exactly what the agency does. I think that'll change over time as you do more outreach, but this is pretty logical for an agency that doesn't touch the public on a monthly basis, let's say, with a bill. You just show up on their taxes, and there's no real relationship there, other than if they show up here or they see some marketing. All right, so let's go to slide 17 and look at job approval. And I will say that this is, to me, pretty remarkable. In that, if we go up a little bit, you can see the time over time results at the bottom there. The numbers from over time, you can see 2016, we are off from an approval basis. Only 72% approve of what the agency does, with a very basic explanation of who the agency is. When I say only, I mean this is pretty remarkable. We have seen a precipitous drop in trust and approval in government across the board, including something we hadn't seen for decades, and that is local government having a precipitous drop in trust in institutions in general in the last 4 years. The fact that you are still way in the 70s is pretty remarkable compared to, let's say, the city or almost any other agency out there. People are pretty happy with what you're doing, and with a very basic explanation. So yes, we're down from 2016, but still in remarkable territory. And we don't want to ever discount the 5% who say they disapprove, but it's a pretty small number of people who say they disapprove. We don't normally get 71% or 72% of anybody in America, of Americans agree on anything. So it's pretty impressive. Next slide, I'll show you, and I'm going to go through these. I'm going to kind of skip these intensity slides all throughout for the most part. But this one just shows you, among those who approve, the vast majority, 57%, strongly approve. And among those who disapprove, which is a very small percent, 5%, if you look at it, that small number, a minority strongly disapprove. So these intensity numbers very much favor people being happy with the agency. If we go to the next slide, we'll look at the breakdown by all these demographics. And I'm going to go through this first one, and then unless somebody calls out a specific one, I'm going to skip over them because there's too many 147 slides. But just give you a sense as you go through the data, you can understand it. Based on gender, based on age here, you can see there's broad approval of the agency, a chunk of people who just don't know, which is pretty logical because they're just not thinking about you on a regular basis, and a sliver of people who say they disapprove. If you go to the next slide, we look at the data based upon ethnicity and language. So here you see people self-selecting their ethnicity, and then the language that they chose to respond in. Very small numbers for Vietnamese, so the numbers are going to be a little bit skewed. One person can really change that disapproval. But again, just cutting the data just to give you a sense of it. And then if we go to the next slide, you'll see the data based upon geography and whether they had contacted the agency. So you can see, and obviously, Newport Beach is very small, and Unincorporated is pretty small compared to Costa Mesa, but you can see the approval levels there. And then you can kind of see whether they called or visited or sent an email to the agency or didn't contact the agency, kind of across the board. We also have survey mode, so you can see the group of people we talked to on the phone versus the group of people we responded online. And you can see landline and mobile under that, and then email and text under that. What is really interesting here is there is sometimes, actually a decent amount of the time in recent months and year or so, where people who respond online are a little bit more candid, a little bit more willing to say something negative. And so we'll sometimes see a divergence between the respondents on the telephone and the respondents online. We didn't really see that here at all. We generally saw very positive numbers across the board, regardless of the mode of the survey. So next slide, slide 22. We say, why do you disapprove of the job Costa Mesa Sanitary District is doing? Among the 5% who say that. What are their answers? What is that small group of people saying? You don't offer recycling or composting programs. So this is the group of people who are not kind of, your customers are not engaged in having access to that. Maybe this is the slide you provide to the city. This is the kind of information that people are upset about because they want to engage in that activity. Poor customer service agent, workers, drivers, that's probably reflective of CR&R more than it is of your team. But again, a very small number. So I can just imagine a CR&R rep here saying, hold on, how many people is that? Well, it's probably about 4. And that's going to happen, over the course of a year. Somebody's going to be upset with something. Price is too high, okay? Streets are not clean. These are things to us that we consider kind of homework. Can we address any of these particular things? Is this our job? Is this something you can handle and take on and try to solve? Maybe. And so there's the things. Bins are too small, not enough bins. In my house, that's definitely relevant. We just moved. So I can understand where that guy's coming from. But very small numbers of these people, but relevant to understand what concerns them. Slide 23.
Wait, I'd just be curious.
Yeah.
I know you don't know, but I'd be curious what the other is. That's the highest rated
Yeah.
category in there. It's just
So,
It just begs the question of what would some of those things possibly be?
so in the open-ended responses in the survey, in the report on results, they're all spelled out, and you can actually see the verbatim responses. So someone said, the trash truck backed into my, mailbox and turned, and pushed it over. And you can see that person lives in Newport Beach, is 50 to 55 or 50 to 65, Latino, and whatever other details we have on them. So you can get the experience of who that person is. You can read through all of those. We categorize anything that is of substance, but when it's two people saying something, we generally don't. If you go to slide 23, we have a talk about the contract that we've got with CR&R for trash, and we say, thinking about the job CR&R is doing, picking up your trash, recycling, green waste, would you say that we're doing an excellent, good, fair, poor job? 59% say excellent, good. We combined, we don't consider fair as bad, it's just fair. It's the middle answer. So looking at it, we've got 7% rounding up that say poor or very poor, and a chunk of people who just don't know because it's just not something. They put the trash out, it goes away, they're done. I'll skip over the slides that kind of go detail detail the why and the details, because it's not that interesting. And we'll go to slide 28. I'm sorry. Go to slide number 29, and we answer the question, why do you think it's poor? And this again is among those 6.8% and 7% who say they're not happy with the service. Don't trust them to sort out recycling, not recycling bins in my area. So then that's again a symptom of your relationship with the city. Inconsistent pickup times, too slow, they pick up, throws cans around haphazardly. These are handfuls of people who are saying something that is relevant to them, that is concerning to them. This is pretty easy kind of thing that you just hand over to CR&R, and I assume they'll probably want to address each one of these things. Pretty simple for them to do.
I would think though that because businesses are included and because multifamily is included, and we have a high percentage of renters in the city, that the majority of the people that think the city or the sanitary district doesn't recycle is because their trash goes in a dumpster, and they find it really hard to believe that it gets separated. And I was one of those people until I joined up with all these guys and went on a tour and saw that they actually do it. So that's why I was interested in seeing, how the numbers break out, because I would have to think the majority of the people that rent think that it's not being separated.
Right.
I think it's more because they don't see the blue trash can out there, it says recyclable.
Well, everything just goes in dumpster.
I think the very last thing we'll address just what you said.
Yeah. All right, so slide 30, the next one. Costa Mesa Sanitary District, Independent Special District, talks about kind of your governance, and then how important is it that CMSD remains independent. 41% they say it's important, 13% say it's unimportant, a big bunch of people just don't know. So the plurality say we got to stay independent. There's a drop in people who say it's important, a drop of people who say it's unimportant, a big drop of people who say we just don't know. I would be betting on the side of staying independent with these numbers for what the public wants. If you go to the next slide, I will use the intensity slide on slide 31 just to point out the intensity is hugely there. More than 2/3, almost 70%, saying it's very important to remain independent as an agency, whereas those who say it's not very important or it's unimportant, only 31%, 32% say it's the intensity for not important. So definitely big support for remaining independent. Skipping to slide 36, why are they saying it's important? It's important to remain independent. They list a whole bunch of different things here, and the top one, the 17%, less for the city to focus on, prevents government involvement, reduces regulations. I'm not sure exactly how they get there, but essentially they think you're better at it than the city is. And then it works well, prevents service interruptions. They've got a whole list of things that they think, I think one of the things that creeps in here is this non-political, whereas the city has kind of more of a reputation of having hyper-politics, and you don't really. So I think those are some interesting ways of looking at it. And then slide 37, why is it not important? It doesn't matter if they're independent or not. Overall service and efficiency needs to be improved. Small numbers of people who think it's not important, and there's some random conflict issue that is curious to me, but something they mentioned. Slide 38, Coast Mesa Sanitary District is debt-free. Is it important to you that the district does not go into debt? 78% say yes. You're unique as an agency. Most agencies, doesn't matter what they do for a living, have debt. Most agencies also probably wouldn't want to ask this question because you don't want to necessarily tie your hands. But big group of people there, 78% saying that they like the idea that you're debt-free, and that's remained static for the last few years. Looking down to slide 44, we ask them why is it important that the agency remains debt-free. And just a general debt is bad, can cause many problems, helps keep rates low, keep costs down, debt could impact service. So you get a sense of why it is that they're concerned and why they think that remaining debt-free is valuable. Next slide, slide 45. Rate the reliability of the sanitary service provided by the Costa Mesa Sanitary District. And this is 84% reliable. 1% say it's unreliable. That's pretty darn impressive. 1% not being on board. And then we can go to slide 51. Are you aware the Costa Mesa Sanitary District has a smart app called Go CMSD? No, they're not aware that you have a smart app. 87% say no. 10% say yes. You probably have a sense dynamically, internally, whether that's about accurate about usage and downloads, but it's just not on their radar. I'm not sure how much of a push you made to make it around people's radar, but certainly if you want, there's room for improvement there. And then slide 56, we have thinking about the level of openness and transparency maintained by Costa Mesa Sanitary District. Would you say you're very satisfied somewhat, etc.? In the satisfied category, 63% say they're satisfied, only 5% say they're unsatisfied, and a big chunk of people who just don't know. It's just not a part of what they're thinking about. Really impressive again. I think there's a big concern from the public looking at government and being concerned about transparency and concerned about openness, and you're essentially demonstrating that people support you. Again, a big drop, but you have a lot of room there to go down from a few years ago, and it's very similar to other agencies we're seeing. Going to slide 62, do you feel the Costa Mesa Sanitary District Board of Directors is doing enough to protect the environment and health of the community? Most people say they don't know, but you have more than 2 to 1 saying yes, that the Board of Directors is doing enough for the environment. There's a chunk of people here that say no. I think that's pretty logical. Again, we're living in a coastal community. There's not a lot of understanding necessarily what the agency does. So there's probably a group of those people who are thinking, it's you should be doing something that isn't necessarily in your purview. Again, a big drop from last time, but because of this kind of mistrust for government, but still we had a lot of room to go. 2 to 1 saying you're doing enough as an agency, as the board. So slide 69, we get into some programs, and we have a list of all these different things, and we ask people if they've heard of them. The first one on slide 69 is, have you ever used the large item collection? And we have a couple different, here we're reporting just the awareness of the program, not necessarily the use of it. So here we have the awareness at 70%, a group of people say they're not aware. The next one is have you used it? 65% say they have used the program. And then 71, the next slide, we break it down. Were you satisfied with the use of the program? 93% say they're satisfied. So we have a lot of data points here. The next slide, slide 72, talks about door-to-door hazardous waste collection. So we've got 70% awareness. The next slide shows 26% of people who've used the program. And the next slide shows 82% who are satisfied. Excuse me. And then that is among the people who have used the program. Next slide, we have organics recycling on slide 75. 39% are aware. 76% use the program or have used the program. On the next slide. And then the following one, slide 77, 89% say that they are satisfied with the program. So really high numbers for all these programs as far as satisfaction, not necessarily off the charts for awareness, but again, it's not top of mind for them. Slide 78, we talked about the sewer inspection rebate. Only 11% say they are aware of it. Next up, 79%. We've got 42% say they've used the program, which sounds a little bit incongruent. But this is, I think, among the aware. And then if you look at slide 80, 74% among those who use the program are satisfied with the program. Medical disposal, slide 81. 29% are aware, 48% are unaware. Next, 82, 19% have used the program, the medical disposal program, and of them, 86% are satisfied with the program. So high numbers of satisfaction. Slide 84, we get to specifically the sharps disposal, 31% awareness, which is up, quite frankly, from last year, or from 3 years ago. 23% have used the program. And then satisfaction at 94% on slide 86. So really strong satisfaction for that program. Slide 87, American Flag retirement. 18% are aware of the service. Next slide, 21% of those who have used the program. And then 88, on slide 89, 89%, or 90% if you round up, are satisfied with the program. Next, we have Citizens Environmental Protection Academy, slide 90. 14% say yes, they're aware of it. Here we break down, not sure why we broke it down by demographics here, but we broke it down by demographics. You have a high level of awareness of the program. I think I'm missing the satisfaction level with it, and we'll update that in the final version we deliver. So slide 100, I think is our, slide 95. Would you be interested in attending the Environmental Protection Academy to learn how the district uses state-of-the-art technology? Kind of across the board, you got almost a third of the population who said yes, they're interested. So it's kind of an encouraging fact and detail. A bunch of people say no, and we can't fault them for not having the time for it. Some maybes as well. So I think if you add up the yes and the maybes and the unsures, you get a pretty strong group of people who may be interested in being more engaged with the agency. Slide 100, we have our Next question, why wouldn't you be interested in attending? So among that small group, the 36% who say they wouldn't, time is their biggest factor. And then, I'm just not interested in the subject matter. And that's okay. I don't think we can expect everyone to be as interested as the Citizens Committee. Better things to do and things like that. So, but good to know it's mostly time. Slide 101. The organics program allows residents to separate food scraps and green waste. You approve or disapprove the organics program, essentially diverting it from the landfill. 83% approve of the program, down a little bit, largely because people just don't know, they're not familiar, and that's it. But huge numbers approve. Big numbers strongly approved. So, slide 107. Which of the following are the greatest barriers to participating in the organics program? Number one, I didn't know about it. I don't have enough room on the property to store a cart. I don't know what can go in. I don't know what can go in the bin. It's too hard to separate. So some really substantive feedback here that you can kind of sink your teeth into and say, okay, how do we address these things and give people the tools they need in order to be more participatory in the organics program. You know, we're dealing with a project like this. You know, I don't know what goes in the bin for another agency in the Midwest, and we're looking at, you know, icons or imagery or various different things of how to kind of drive understanding of how to do that. It's kind of a cool thing that you get to understand. Okay, this is their challenge, and how do we overcome that for them? Slide 109. We get into rates, and here we kind of explain that rates are for a single-family home is $92 a year, one of the lowest in the county, and kind of detail what rates go towards. You support or oppose the sewer rate to pay for increased costs, so sewer rate increase to pay for increased costs. We don't give them details. We just kind of say, do you support or oppose? Almost majority, 48%, support the idea to cover these costs without giving them any detail. So that's a pretty good come out of the gate number to kind of get a sense of their support out there. Only 23% out of the gate oppose it. If you look at slide 115, agree or disagree, and this is a split sample. I support Costa Mesa Sanitary District raising rates by about $2 to $5 a year over a 5-year period. 61% say yes. That is, I'd say as researchers, sometimes we are surprised. I am somewhat surprised that you have that broad support for a rate increase of about $2 to $5 a year. Now, if you look at that broken down on slide 120, we talked to them about 2 to 5% per year. And your support on slide 120 drops to about even, saying they support and they agree and they disagree. What is this about? What this is about is, even though I just told them how much they pay, I don't know really how much I pay. I don't get a bill from you. I don't have a real sense of it. And you just told me $2 to $5, I can handle that. You just tell me 2 to 5%, I don't know what that means to me. Don't make me do math. I'm not comfortable with that number. So, what's that?
It scares people.
Yeah. So when you tell them $2 to $5 a month, they get it. They understand on a yearly basis what that means, and they're accepting of it. So, I mean, there's no question here now. Moving forward, any discussions about rates, you're going to use the dollar amount to whatever extent you can in a public forum, because that's what they're going to be responsive to. Pretty simple stuff. Going to slide 126. Has someone reached out, called, emailed, visited in any way the agency? Here's a breakdown of how people said they've reached out. The vast majority of people said that they did not communicate at all with the district, 67%. But others suggest that they've got some other level of contact. I would caution that this may be that they called CR&R. It didn't necessarily mean that they called your headquarters. I think, this may also be, they called, Joe's trash hauling too, to get rid of some junk in the front yard. So I caution, but this is, to some degree, the other numbers are probably pretty dead on. And this is the kind of engagement you're getting from the public. 127. Slide 127, thinking about the most recent contact, so this is among those people who had contact, 81% were satisfied, and I'm going to make some notes here to explain that this is among those people, and only 11% that say they're dissatisfied, certainly something you want to address, but the vast majority, 81%, say they're very satisfied. And then if you go to slide 133, how do you prefer that the Costa Mesa Sanitary District keep you informed about district operations and activities? We gave them some options. They want a newsletter is what their biggest answer is. They'll get some email alerts, about a third, a little more than a third say they'll do that. Some of them will look at your social media posts, and it cascades down from there. But for the most part, if you want to communicate with them, they prefer to get a piece of mail from you. Slide 134, the next one, how often do you prefer to receive communications? I'm kind of surprised at the 4 people who say they want to get something from you on a daily basis. I'm not sure what you would send them. Maybe if Scott's in the office today or not, or something like that. But really, they think on a monthly basis is kind of the right frequency to be communicating with. So 135, slide 135, knowing what you know now, do you approve or disapprove the job the agency is doing? 79% approve, only 3.4% disapprove. I mean, these are really remarkable numbers. And again, this is what we would call the informed vote, essentially. What if they've kind of gone through all the different things? Now remember, we went through talking to them about these great services you provide. We also went through talking to them about raising their rates. And you still have pretty remarkable numbers in the end. And then slide 142 is kind of the demographics that kind of give you a perspective of who it is from a household standpoint. So 41%, over 41% own a single family home. And you can kind of see how it plays out from there. Own a condo, rent a townhome, things like that. How they rent some other kind of a structure. So you rent a single family home, get a sense of how it breaks down. And then slide 43 gives you an even deeper perspective of all the different ways we talk to people based on gender, based on age, based on language, ethnicity, and based on geography, all those different factors of how that communication happened, who they were. This is the culmination of first a focus group that we did online that also is in a report that was delivered to staff. And then, as I said, there's a very large 1,000+ page. We haven't printed it. We're happy to print it if someone wants it, but we've delivered it electronically. That has all the verbatims and all the crosstabs and all the other data if somebody wants to pour through it. A lot of pages to read through, but this report, if we go back to slide 135, is the culmination of all that data that was collected over the course of several weeks. The focus group, I think, was fascinating. We're not, it's kind of hard to kind of review a focus group result in an open forum like this, but it's kind of, I think, kind of fun to read through and understand how people talk about the district, how people talk about the subject matter. We use that to inform the survey. Okay, what questions can I answer?
The demographics at the end, is that based on people that made it through the whole survey?
Oh yeah, so yeah, important. The same 500 respondents were consistent throughout the entire survey. So if someone answered 12 questions and decided to beg off and not complete it, we dispense with them. We try to complete them, we try to call them back and email them, get them completed, but if they don't, we dispense them. So yes, it's based on all the respondents of the 500.
Do you ask anything about the newsletter, if they're reading it, or if they enjoy it, or?
We didn't dive into the specific newsletter, but
I mean, that's information.
yeah, but they do want it though.
Yeah.
We saw that, so
Okay.
they want to keep getting it.
Mr. Chairman, if I mentioned the committee that before you is the attachment or copies of comments from Mr. Jim Mosier, who submitted these comments to us later this afternoon. I did send these comments to Adam in advance, so if there's anything you wanted to address from Mr. Mosier, he can answer.
Could we go back to slides 81 to 83?
Sure,
It
yeah.
mentions a medical disposal program. We were going through pretty quickly. I thought that was the Sharps, but he's saying that's slides 84 to 86.
Yeah, I think that if I had to guess, I'd say that's the prescription drug disposal program.
Is that something?
Is that
We
door
do.
to door, or is that drop off here at the
that-
district?
Which was the program?
Like
The medical disposal?
It's
program?
right here. It's here. And we also
What
have
is it, the
pharmacies. We have
Sharps?
pharmacies too.
We do pharmacy, okay.
So, yeah, we do have some pharmacies that do it as well.
Okay, so it's not like a drop
But
box
the big
here.
drug take-back events are usually at the police department in conjunction with the DEA.
Okay,
Yeah, but that's not a CMSV program.
No.
okay, so then what is
Like
he?
once a year, it's
Right.
usually community, or let's just say it's funded by federal government.
So what is he talking about on slides 81?
We have a Sharps, we asked about medical and we asked about Sharps. So I think he just suggested you didn't know they were involved. Yeah.
So if we look outside, there's a slot for like, let's say prescription drugs and then one for needles or pills.
Oh, so
He's
there's
just
a
saying he
box-
was unaware of
There's a
it.
box of prescription drugs as well.
Yeah, he's asking
You walk
if that's-
the door to the right for the prescription drugs, to the left for the
Medical.
Sharps.
Ah, okay,
But you
thank
can
you.
also take it to certain pharmacies. too.
Yes, correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you for
And then
clarifying.
hazardous waste and large items are both door to door service.
That's correct.
Oh, that was a question I had, the hazardous waste, the household collection. It's only recent, I think, that we started doing door to door. So the 2016 numbers, is that based on previous awareness of a program where you had to drop it off?
2016, those were, we had it available only for seniors and disabled residents.
Ah, okay.
So that's where those numbers came from the seniors disabled. So
Okay.
just this past year, we opened up entirely for everyone,
Okay.
that are our customers.
Thank you.
Have you had an opportunity to look at these questions from?
I did, I looked at all of them. And none of them concerned me or did I not have an answer for, except the one where he talked about, one of the questions where he was concerned that there are only 3 respondents who are unincorporated, or 5 respondents who are unincorporated, but in one of the answers, there was a 1-1-1 split.
Right.
So it was like, wait a second, there's 5 participants unincorporated, but they split 1-1-1, where are the other 2? That was a split sample question. So 3 of the people were chosen, because split sample means we ask half the people one question, half the people the other. Well, we can't ask half of 5, so 3 of them ended up in one of the, it's a very detailed question, but I had some concern that I figured out the answer, so.
That's the slide 118 question?
Yeah, the 1-on-1, yeah.
Yeah.
But nothing else, I mean, I'm happy to answer anything specific, but, one of the kind of the biggest things he brings up is this idea of the margin of error overall, 4.5. Well, certainly, any subdivision of the data is going to have a larger margin of error. So if, let's say, among men, the margin of error will be smaller because, will be larger because it's half the respondents. And that's certainly a valid point as you go through and, you know, look at the 5 respondents who are in unincorporated areas, the margin of error is, you know, a bajillion. So it's really not, you know, those numbers, anything, you know, in the 5 and 10 and 20 and 30 and 40 respondents, those are directional. They're interesting, they're useful, we're glad we have them, but the margin of error makes them not so statistically valid as individual, you know, breakdowns. Yeah. No, but it's a good point he brings up.
Any other clarifications from Mr. Moser's comments?
Did I see on your slide, and I can't remember what number it was, but it gave the, where the people live, like single-family homes, owner, renter, and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Slide 142.
Okay. Did I note that 20% of the people questioned were apartment dwellers?
They rent an apartment. They say
Yeah,
rent
renters in
Yes.
apartments, right.
Yeah, and there are other renters, and they're like almost 9% rent a single-family home.
Yeah, but the apartment owners, that's 20% of the survey was rent an apartment. So those people probably are oblivious to anything that goes on with the sanitation board.
Well, I
I
think,
mean, they don't have the same carrier, they don't have.
yeah, I think some of those people could get service from the district because it could be a small unit. And yes, they could potentially be people who have, you know, less visibility to the agency,
Right.
but are still constituents of the district and still have, you know, some interest in what happens here.
And there's still sewer
Or sewer.
participants.
Yeah.
So,
But they're not the guy putting their trolley out in the front.
no.
Probably most of those are not.
All right.
I don't necessarily have a question, I just have, I guess, a couple of takeaways. It seems like awareness of, or trust in the ability to sort the recyclables in the main bins is still an area for continued improvement. And then maybe encouragement of or trust in the organics program. And this is just like spitballing, we can say this for the end, but maybe even like a sticker that goes on the bins that really says, honestly, we sort your recyclables, and maybe there's a link to a video that shows what you guys saw when you went and visited. I didn't get to go to that one, of how they sorted at the Stanton facility. And on the organics, you'd be like, honestly, it's not that hard, and like, you know, a picture of banana toast. I just know that the programs are great, but only if the ratepayers use them, and obviously the district has, you know, diversion goals, and getting more trust in those two programs. And then I think the really encouraging thing was that half of the respondents would be interested in, you know, doing Citizens Environmental Protection Academy.
Yeah.
And so I would just commend the board for supporting that and the district staff, and kind of keep the pedal to the metal on that, because I think a lot of people benefited from it.
I will say in the focus group, we had, you know, over 20 respondents or 20 participants. They got a chance to look at a lot of the videos that the district's put together, and they were really moved by them, very interested in what the material from those groups, from the focus group, the videos that the district produced.
I have a question, but I think it's more for you. But it kind of factors into this, I think. At 2020, the whole city, Costa Mesa, everybody, well, California, has to be in compliance with certain guidelines, right? Didn't the law stuff change?
Yes.
Okay, so because the sanitary district only serves a certain part of our community, all the other carriers, who's that gonna blow back against if they're not in compliance? Does the city get beat up over
It's the
that?
city, because it's their responsibility to make sure they comply with the regulations. It's the city responsibility.
Okay,
So all the
because,
data that we gather, we give the city to give to the state, so they're in compliance.
okay, because I remember when you guys do like your annual evaluation of your overall compliance that you get from, your customers. The compliance rate has been extremely high on organics and things like that. So I'm wondering, even though people may not, the district's customers may not know about certain things, but they're compliant with the things that could bite us in the butt, for the most part. So I'm wondering, like, what are we trying to accomplish here if we can't educate the people who aren't our customers? You know what I mean? Like, are you guys trying to educate the whole city, or are you targeting your own customers? Because it seems like somebody who needs a large item pickup is gonna find out if they're entitled to it and then use it.
Yeah, we're just trying to, really, the focus is our customers, because that's, those customers are paying the program. So,
Okay.
that's who we're trying to focus on,
Okay.
customers.
Do you get information as to how many people are using a large item pickup?
Yes, yeah, I don't have those data, I don't have that data with me, but we have,
Okay, they give you that data? so
Yes,
you
yes,
see
yes.
How much it
Yes,
is.
do you want all that information?
It's on here, I thought.
Just, it'd be curious, if you have it right there, Scott.
I don't, I'll have to come back with you on that one.
All right, I'll get it later.
All right, any other comments or questions regarding the survey?
Thank you, like,
Cool, yeah.
super informative.
Great data.
Great, appreciate the opportunity.
And the final report will be available online on the
Yes.
website.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Good job.
Okay, next up on our agenda is considering hiring a public relations firm to.
I'll come over here. Richard, next.
These are correlated in one way, I assume?
Yes, yes, so, obviously the results of the survey was very informative. I think that's why we do these surveys, is the information we obtain is just very useful to us. I have to admit, it was even though Adam he said it was very good numbers, I was a little shocked how low the numbers went down a bit. And also, it was clear to me that, you know, here we are celebrating our 75th year, and a lot of people still don't know who we are, right? I mean, it's clear that's what the survey is telling us. I mean, we hear in the survey that people did not know we recycle. They didn't know anything about the organic recycling. Don't know about our programs, and we offer a lot of great programs. We want people to take advantage of, and people aren't doing that. It's also from the focus group. From the focus group, actually, if you remember the beginning of the slide, when you started asking questions, we got what it was like a 71% approval rating. But then once people learned what we did, that went up to 78%. Same with the focus group. When people didn't know nothing about us, and we started showing them the videos, we started telling them about what we do, their approval rating went through the roofs. So that's telling me that we need to get the word out better. We need to do a better job of outreach, community outreach, and branding ourselves. And that's where this item comes into play, is maybe we need to consider hiring a public relations firm to help us strategize a community awareness program to get the word out to the public that we have all these great programs. Obviously, there's a cost to that, and we did not budget that amount. We're estimating $50,000 to $60,000, which I understand is still a significant amount of money, but when you compare that to other agencies, water districts, largely they spend millions of dollars in public relations, you know, getting the word out. $50,000 to $60,000 to hire a firm to help us strategize on a public awareness program. I believe it would be money well spent. I also believe that's probably why Measure TT passed, because no one knew who we are. You know, so, oh, that sounds great. Yeah, we'll refund $850 because they don't know what we do. So I think this also helps get the word what we do and get community support. So I'm seeking any questions you may have, any directions you have, and hopefully your approval to recommend the board of directors consider hiring a public relations firm.
Can you just run through, like, what is the staff's current approach to social media content creation, outreach, and would the recommendations of this firm fit into current staff members' like existing sets of responsibilities, or would you need staff? Would you need to do a net hire to implement their recommendations?
No, I don't. I think I don't think we need to hire anymore. But right now, it's pretty much Gina that's doing all the social media. She's doing a fantastic job. I mean, you saw the activity on social media is increased tremendously. And the newsletter, obviously, the newsletter has been very effective. I think where the PR firm will come in is what other strategies can we use, and can we implement that, and hopefully that firm could kickstart it, get it started for us, and then ultimately we would take over on implementing that program. But I'm really looking for a firm that has some ideas that they use successfully in other organizations that maybe comply to us, that maybe we haven't thought of. Yes.
I'm not being flip, but why why would we, why would anybody want to know more about the sanitary district?
Well, it began, like I said, because of the programs we offer. We have so many great programs out there for people to take advantage, and they're not taking advantage of that. I think that's where the public awareness will be very come in handy, is that, did you know we have a Sharps drop-off program? Do you know we have a medicine drop-off program? Most people don't know that. Again, I was concerned that, surprised that people don't know that we recycle. I was surprised that people don't know that we have an organic recycling program for 5 years now, and people still don't know we offer that program. That was surprising to me. And so I want people to understand these programs are available for the community, to benefit the community, to benefit the environment.
Does the CR&R contract have any, and I'm not familiar with the ins and outs of the contract, but with better participation, let's just say in the organics and more recyclable items in the regular bins, is there any cost savings that you could come back to, like awareness could have an ROI type thing, as opposed to just awareness because it benefits the community, which I think it does, but I'm just curious from a fiscal standpoint, is there any correlation you could make?
I haven't done that, but we can go back and look at that, so that's a good suggestion. I've not done that, I don't know at this point.
I feel like I personally know more about the water district than the sanitation district because they have more of an outreach program.
Yes.
It's all by email and they'll say, we're having a class on this or we're going to be discussing this. And there's more of that outreach program. This one, it doesn't have any.
Right, yeah, and I think they have like 5 people on staff who does public outreach, and they've got a huge budget for it. And they're not alone, a lot of the large agencies do that. They have huge public relations budgets. We're not saying we're not going to want to be like that, but I do believe we need to spend some money to get the word out.
I mean, like even the battery recycle program at the schools, I didn't know about it until I heard about it here at one of the meetings. But in one of your newsletters, have you ever said some of the schools are recycling batteries? You might want to check with your schools, see if they are doing it, and if not, encourage them. I mean, just let the public out there know that there is a recycling program. Because if you don't have kids going to Davis or whatever, then you don't know that Davis or Sonora or Ray or whatever is recycling.
Right, very good, thank you.
They do promote that they're collected at the Orange Coast
Yeah, but
College
if you don't
program.
have kids going there, then you're not aware of the program.
Right.
Have you guys had the conversation with the city about outreach in terms of them helping spread the word through their avenues? And the only reason I'm bringing that up, I know you guys are 2 completely different entities, but if Costa Mesa has to be, the state of California has to be in compliance by 2020, and they have all of these renters and all of these other haulers doing we don't know what, they're the ones, the city's gonna get hit harder than the district. And they have an amazing public affairs and outreach for media, television, and also, print. So I'm wondering if anyone's had the conversation with either the council or Tony Dondero, who's in charge of media, and Dane Bora, who's in charge of television and video, to, yes, it would help the district and they'd be spreading your message, but they'd really be helping themselves in the long run by getting the message out to everybody. It seems to me that that is a worthwhile conversation that wouldn't cost a lot of money when all it can do is save money for them.
We've had those conversations, or at least we try to have those conversations with the city staff. We at times, they do promote our programs on Costa Mesa 2 minutes. I think they get their marching orders from their superiors. It's got to come from the top. We can't just go in there and ask them. They'll politely do what they can, but it comes from the top, and they're not getting that from the top right now. So they have other higher priorities they're dealing with. They do what they can when they ask, but it hasn't been a sit down with them and say, here's what we need, can you provide that? Nothing like that. It's something we can explore. I think with Pat Bruce, maybe having a conversation with the city manager. And if if she agrees with that, then she would tell Wayne and his staff to meet with us and come up with a plan. But again, I don't know what their resources are or what's on their plate. I know they're really busy, extremely busy over there.
Right, but if being non-compliant is gonna cost them thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, they should, I would think, have that conversation.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then as a resident, I will march in there and beat them up over it, because that just is money down the drain that we could use for something else, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Good comment.
What kind of contacts do our board of directors have with the board, the mayor and so forth in the city?
Well, we meet with them for our liaison meeting every 3 months. And we each have, like, the water district, the school board, and the city, and us. And we host it, take turns having it for breakfast and talk to them on subjects. And then get to explain what we're doing and help each other. Like if somebody's digging up something and somebody else wants to jump in to help, then that helps. Anyway, it's just that everybody has their own, they march to a different tune. You know, it's not as easy as you think, you know.
And you've tried telling them what you're doing for the city's best interest,
Yes.
and the
We're doing our
and the-
share.
government is going to crash down if they don't.
They're aware. We're the only frustrated people. They're trying so hard to meet the compliance thing.
Scott, you said the costs were estimated at 50 to 60, but you haven't put an RFP out? How,
No, we have not.
how can you be confident in that estimate?
From talking through some of the consultants already, we've had some conversations with them, so, yeah, if we receive direction from the board, we'll do an RFP.
And would you anticipate doing a multi-year contract?
Yes.
And the deliverable would just be a list of priorities or an action plan or suggestions of outreach?
The deliverable, well, no, not just action plan, but I also would help have the publisher help implement those programs for us.
It says include a social media person. Would that be somebody on their staff or yours?
It'd be our staff, yeah,
Gotcha.
because we rehab that already with Gina.
How would the effectiveness of the outreach be measured?
Based on the survey, I think on the survey is a good measurement, so we'll survey the residents again in a couple of years and see those numbers get improved. So I think that's a good benchmark right there, is the survey.
Is there any other way to measure success, you know, short of a survey in 2 to 3 years? Like, can you see if there's an uptick in certain requests for the services?
If you see your
Yeah.
programs being used more,
Yeah,
that's gonna tell
absolutely,
you right there.
measured, yeah, programs, yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely.
mean, because it is a lot of money. If there was a better way to define success, that might be, I think it's a great idea, and I don't want to speak for the group, but I would definitely vote in favor of, but with maybe defining success in kind of a 6-month, 1 year,
Yeah.
2 year, 3 year.
I think that's also part of that plan, okay, how do you measure success? So we would maybe form an ad hoc committee, and part of that ad hoc committee would be the consultant, and we develop a plan.
But if the consultant or the PR agency, part of their plan is to measure success, they're gonna measure success in a way that they're guaranteed to meet
Well,
it. So
not,
you
I
would
mean,
need to
not
tell
necessarily,
them.
I just said, I mean, come up, what are the measurements we use for success? So we would gather the data and determine ourselves the success, but we just know what are some good measurements to use.
I can make some input. Sue, the present goal is 50%. 50% of the materials tonnages should be kept out of landfill. And I would say that half of the jurisdictions do not meet that, and the state has done nothing. So when the 75% criteria, or 75% of the materials should not be put in the landfill comes to fruition, we're also going to lose ground, because green waste won't be part of that. Part of what puts in the landfill and gives us good numbers. It's going to be total chaos. and the state will do, I would suspect, absolutely nothing. The 50% criteria came in, I don't know, 20 years ago. And many jurisdictions don't even meet the 50% criteria. I think what the city will do, and I expect they're on top of it, is they will say to their 7 or 8 vendors, you need to meet that 75% criteria. And those 7 or 8 vendors, or however many they have now, roaming around the city picking up the commercial and industrial waste. Those vendors pick up 83% of the tonnage that's collected in the city. And we contribute, residents contribute about 17%. I don't think any jurisdictions, I don't think many, if any, are going to meet that number for a long, long time. And the state will probably do absolutely nothing. It is a sad commentary. You know, we've talked to the city about it, and we realize it's the city's responsibility to get it done. And if they tell those 7 or 8 vendors to do it, and they do it, our numbers aren't going to make too much difference. We're at 63% or so now, and gaining's ever so slightly. And we did the organics program thinking we might hit the 75%. And it hasn't quite panned out that way. So I wouldn't worry too much, Sue, about the state coming down hard on jurisdictions like the city that don't make it. I would march in there though and ask them, you know, what are you going to do? I think it's relatively easy for the city. They just are going to put some clauses in those vendors' contracts, and they can have up to 17 vendors. They'll just put some clauses in there if they're smart and say, okay, you're going to meet 75% recycling for us. Now, the vendor can do some more stuff. They can put on like a second line of recycling, so they have one line that goes through. If they put that through a second line, they can do better. So the materials recycling facilities, or the MRFs, are probably going to bear the brunt of that. That's going to cost the vendors money and the citizens money. It's almost a stupid state law, but it is. I support the goal of the state to keep materials and green waste and other things out of the landfill. How that's going to happen, I'm very excited to hear about.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with most of it. But if the district customers make up 17% of the trash that's being hauled, and the non-district customers make up 83%, it seems like we're spending a lot of extra money on a small percentage of people who almost already do what they're supposed to be doing, as opposed to,
Go to the historical.
I mean, but CR&R is only picking up 13% of the trash and
17%.
17% of trash in the city.
The residents produce about, historically, and that may be a little higher or lower.
Okay,
Not-
and the rest are apartment buildings and
So
commercial.
it's commercial and industrial that is, the big bins that are picked up in
Well,
the
and
city.
the apartment buildings too.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
fall into the commercial and
Yeah.
industrial side. Yeah, which there are a lot of in the city.
Well, there's 50% of them are,
They're about to be mandated, the apartments beginning in 2020 are going to be mandated to have separate containers and organics collection in the apartments as well, which,
yeah, there's just new laws. You know, the fascinating part about that is I walk a lot. So there's white bins, there's white bins, and there's other color bins depending on the hauler. The city of Costa Mesa, each jurisdiction gets to choose whether those white bins are picked up separately or in the same truck. Costa Mesa is one of the jurisdictions that allows those bins. So when they go in and they pick up bins, they pick up the white bin and the green bin or the blue bin or whatever in the same truck. I was appalled, so I called the state and said, the jurisdiction has to require that they pick them up separately. I mean, there's all kinds of idiotic things. The goal's great.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to say in light of our time tonight, what we can influence is the 17%, and I think
Yeah.
there's room for improvement under, the district's purview, and I do think it's a good idea, and I think awareness would help get participation in the program. I think the programs are worthwhile, so I don't know if we're ready to make a motion, but I think.
Well, according to this agenda item, we're just to receive and file, or not?
No, there's the
There is
recommendation,
an
recommend the
action.
board directors consider hiring public works for, so we are seeking some direction from the committee.
Where is the 50 to 60,000, where would that fall in the budget?
It come out of this, solid waste, fund balance. So we'd have to, we'd recommend the board to appropriate money from the fund balance.
Is it budgeted?
No, it's not budgeted.
And that fund has reserves that would cover.
Oh, yes, we have money in reserves.
So we have a motion to,
Oh, sorry, then the motion, I would just say with maybe defining success in the short term and long term.
Yes,
That's,
yes.
if the group thinks that's a good idea.
okay, we have a motion describing performance.
I would second that.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstain? Okay.
Abstaining
Abstain?
at the moment. I would like whatever that was to be described better than, because I.
Your motion? Would you like to restate the motion, Andy?
Sure. I think, Scott, you had said that the success would be defined by survey results in 2 to 3 years, and I was just thinking there's got to be some measurables in the near term.
Yes.
And I was going to leave it to staff's discretion to make those recommendations to the board. It's
Okay.
participation in the programs, and I think you named a few other metrics that you could probably.
Short-term metrics that we can, yes, like the number of participation in our projects. We see those numbers going up, then.
Downloads on the app,
Yes.
things of that nature.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I think there's more physical things
Yes,
in a
correct.
survey.
Thank you.
If all of a sudden
You're right.
CCNR doubles in their curbside pickup,
Yes.
I
Absolutely.
think that's obviously, that it tells you right there. I'd feel more comfortable with physical, something, more apps, more pickups, more something, stuff we're going after, people got it and are using it. That would tell me more than a guy talking on the phone to another guy.
Okay, so in the spirit of record keeping, the amended motion would be specifically,
That the staff would take our recommendation to the board, but first defining what success would look like both in the short term and the long term with metrics that are at their discretion.
okay, that being the amended motion, we have
I still second
still
that.
second. Since we've had discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'm still opposed.
I'm still on the
Still
fence. I'd like to say yes, but I'd like to know more about what does it mean? Can we just give Gina a raise and have
There you
her
go.
work on other
300,
things?
400,000 a year, what do you need?
I need his time.
I was gonna say, she needs more hours to the day, probably.
Okay, so as it
Then
stands, we have,
staff people for
so as it stands right now, we have a motion with 5 yes, 1 no, 1 abstain.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, we try to get out of here by 7:30. That was the goal of the meeting, so
Correct.
if we don't mind, if I can recommend we maybe tables items 6 and 7 to the next meeting.
Okay, without objection?
Were they receiving file?
Yeah, it's more of just giving an update. We reported these 2 items to you in the past, so we just want to give you an update here as we are today on these 2
I
topics.
support that. I would like to, at our next meeting, I would like to hear the staff report on the smoke test for our future meeting.
Maybe next month you can put them up front.
should have gone to the
Why,
board.
why would you like that? Well,
Well, I don't mind, I got plenty of work.
You should have gone to the last board meeting.
yeah, I should.
Okay, that'll be our first item next meeting.
Pardon me?
That'll be our first item.
Okay, first item. There you go, Rob. You can get out of here. Okay, then, Closing items before we leave, committee member and staff comments in 3 minutes. Really quick, I'd like to commend staff for the 75th anniversary and open house. I thought that was a nicely done event. Thank you guys for putting that on.
I agree, that was a great event.
Gina, her staff, she did it.
And the shopping bags, the 75th shopping bags are amazing. I love those things. If you haven't given them all away, if you guys haven't gotten one, you should ask for one because they're really cool.
Okay, I'm asking for one.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have them left. The other thing, I know we talked about it a little bit before the meeting, just for the record, is could you reach out to Albert and see, like, send him something in the mail, or if you could give me his address, I'll send him a card, something, so we can check on him and see if he's okay, and at least let him know that we're thinking about him and hoping all is well, since he's not returning any electronic correspondence. Kind of concerns me.
And with that being an issue, we'll, at a future meeting, discuss potential new co-chair for the committee if Albert's not going to continue. Any other member comments?
I was just gonna share an announcement that I think Mike also knows about. There's gonna be an event on December 14th that I believe the St. Peter's is just a partial sponsor of.
Yes.
There's an author of a book called Zero Waste,
Yes.
and
Zero Waste Home.
Zero Waste Home, which is obviously in line with some of the goals of this committee, and I believe she'll be speaking at OCC. And I don't know that it's open yet to all members of the public, but I think certainly to the board and some district staff, and I think all the Citizen Advisory Committee members would be welcome. So I or Mike maybe can get that invitation out to people.
Yes, please.
And maybe you have a bit more context.
Yes, that event will be from 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. at one of our larger lecture halls at Orange Coast College.
That's a Saturday?
It's a Saturday morning, yes.
And the date?
December 14th.
December 14th.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah, Saturday morning, December 14th. Yes.
What time was that?
10 till 1.
If we were able to get the invitation to the staff, could you get it out to all the CAC members?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Is
More to
the
follow.
author just, is she just covering ideas from her book? or-
From her, yes, but on a personal level, so yeah, things that you can do on a personal level.
That'd be great.
Anybody else? Staff, no?
Just thank you, staff, Scott, board members, for everything you do. You guys work hard, and I'll never say thank you, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that being said, we will adjourn this meeting right at 7:30.
Wow.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.